the dim-lit chandeliers glow, we'll sip our worries away, nice and slow. Your laughter ripples like sweet warm wine. In this jazzy sultry space you're mine. The saxophone croons a velvet tune, while melodies dance beneath the moon. We'll toast to moments both grand and small, in this hazy, lazy, jazz-touched hall. Let's sit together in the mellow night. We'll drink to love till the morning light. Every glass we raise a promise true. Here's to the magic in a drink with you. Your eyes, they sparkle with every click. Sweet rendezvous over a simple drink. We'll share our secrets in whispers low, just you and me where the jazz flows slow. The world outside fades into the mist, but here it's our own dreamy tryst. With each sip our worries drift away. Let's stay together till the break of day. So let's sit together in the mellow night. We'll drink to love till the morning light. Every glass we raise a promise true. Here's to the magic in a drink with you.
The following live stream has been approved for appropriate audiences. It may contain occasional strong language and may not be suitable for younger or more sensitive viewers. Viewer inebriation is advised, though not mandatory.
Good evening, happy Friday, and welcome to The Last Call, where tonight we're cracking open the dusty video game grave from 1983. Yeah, that glorious industry faceplant that saw millions of garbage games shoveled into a New Mexico desert, and the whole video game biz basically died for like 5 minutes. And yeah, E.T. was so bad it made kids prefer homework. Fast forward to now, endless live service slop, $70 games that are basically DLC with a pointless disc, and every publisher screaming, this time it's different, while printing microtransaction receipts like their hall passes. Spoiler, history doesn't repeat, but it sure loves to blow into the same buggy cartridge. So top off your glasses and settle in, because the crash might be loading. Let's talk about it before the servers go dark. The Canarble Wagon rolls right now.
Last Call is streamed before a live audience.
Ruby who, you're a gem shining through. Every kindness, every gift makes the whole world sparkle new. Ruby who, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruby. I think just one is enough, but you did gift a membership on both of our channels. Thank you so much. So the one on Netter's channel went to Mrs. Criticless. I think that's funny. Mrs. Last Call gets a membership from Mrs. Criticless. So there you go. And I got the smoking auditor. The smoking auditor. Well, there you go. I'm wondering if that's a Hellraiser reference. It could be the auditor. But welcome, my friends. So glad that you could be here this this very special Friday. Every Friday is special because it starts the weekend. Let's get my panel in here, all of whom survived the 80s along with me. Netter of Netter's Network, how you doing, my dear? What you sipping on?
I'm doing well. I actually finished a project today that I've been working on all week.
She wasn't expecting me to call on her right away. She was.
I'm eating some lupine, okay?
Yeah.
I am drinking my Pillar brand seltzer water in black cherry.
There you go.
But I'm feeling really great that I got this stupid project done.
I am very glad to hear that. I've been hearing about how crazy this project sounded, and she would describe it to me, and I'd be like, my gosh, I can't even imagine. But
I mean, we still got a ton of testing left to do, but the portion I have been working on, that part is done unless they give me more of it.
Yep. And I am, of course, sipping on, well, you guys can go check out Liquid Lunch from today to see what it is I'm sipping on today. But Age of Boomer, how you doing? What you sipping on? And do you have to work tomorrow morning?
I'm doing fine. I'm sipping on a water. I do not have to work tomorrow morning. I do have a thing for a coworker in the afternoon, a baby shower to attend. So, which
that is
I know men don't. I don't know if I guess it's not a thing anymore where men don't attend them, but I guess.
Yeah, unfortunately now they invite everybody because.
But I feel since I'm one of the few staff that had it off today, I better attend it. So yes.
Oh, there you go.
But it'll be fun, I'm sure. Yes.
That is absolutely fair. Let's start saying hi to the chat here. I was trying to figure out if there was a way I can get rid of my name tag here. I can edit the name, but it doesn't look like in this setting I am allowed to remove that. I will have to figure out how to do that some other time. I will remove it definitely when we get to the presentation. But hello, Big Al of Big Al Presents. Hope you have a great show tonight and enjoy your Sazerac. Troy, see, he was here at lunchtime. He knows. And Connie Cleary, the bird woman of YouTube, who has been with us for 2 years and 1 month. She dropped a member chat during lunch today. If you guys are missing out on the lunch streams, you guys are missing out. You really are. Of course, nothing says you have to be here live. You could always catch them Memorex. Tired Midnight Blogger, good to see you here live. Howdy. Good to see you, my friend. Salute to you as well, Deleted Scenes. Thank you for being here. Gamera is really neat. He is made of turtle meat. Okay, there you go. Let's see. Jamie Lynn, good to see you. Saying hi to each other, which I always love seeing. Netter is calling me the love of her life, which, she would be doing live if she wasn't.
Hello, my darling, the love
popping
of my
beans
life.
in her mouth.
Hey, I'm eating lupini. It's really good.
And it's full of protein, I know.
It's my snack and my
I hear
dinner.
music. They told when I die there would be music. Well, hopefully your life is filled with music too. So there you go.
Well, they play that for you at in that station in Soylent Green when they take you into that room. They play music.
That's a good
point.
point.
Wait, never mind.
That is an excellent point. Geek Flag with Nate knows says like, share, subscribe, become a member, do all those things. And if you were going to give a super chat of $5 more, why not do exactly what Ruby Hoof did and gift a membership? She says, have a great time. Thank you so much, Ruby. Super, super appreciate it. Yeah, we're going to take a step back to the video games we were playing in 1983. Hey, Troy, Boomer, and the timeless beauty known as Netters. Absolutely. And I know it's not Thankful Thursday, but I am extremely thankful that Mrs. Geek Flag is doing much, much better. Not 100%, a lot better than she was. That is, so have they confirmed If she stays away from that particular brand of vitamin B12, she's going to be okay. Is that all there was to it? Yeah, let us know. Let us know. Jesse Guajardo says, hey, Troy. Hey, Netters. And hey, Aged Boomer.
Hello.
Let's see.
Got a new mic.
Let's get a sound check. How does everyone sound, especially this guy?
How do I sound, everyone?
There you go.
Molasses, molasses, it's icky, sticky goo. Molasses, molasses, it always sticks to you. There was a guy named Fred who always stayed in bed, and by they wondered why. They found out he was dead. How do I say? That's an old song.
Yesterday, upon a stair, I saw a man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. Gee, I wish he'd go away.
Just let me know if I'm sounding off or anything. But
Yeah,
I should
exactly.
sound better than I usually do. So yes.
Aged Boomer sounds so regal. No pun intended. Thank you very much. Enigma Severus, welcome, my friend. And one more little song. I love me, I love me, I love me more and more. In every day, in every way, I love myself some more. I take myself to a quiet place. I put my arms around my waist. If I get fresh, I slap my face. I love me more and more. That was a much more innocent song, back in my grandmother's day. Nowadays, it sounds a little bit blue, just saying. But I'm going to move to the presentation because I'm just getting tired of seeing my name in front of my chin. So
Look at
there
this.
we go.
The video game, quote
So
unquote.
do we need to do a preamble on this, Boomer? Or do you have that already worked into this?
Well, I mean, I don't know if we do or don't have to. You know, it's funny how you had mentioned in your intro about how problems with DLC and buggy games getting released. And I remembered that was our big concerns in the gaming community before it became all about the woke politics being inserted into games and the media and everything else. That was the big concern. Like, we were trying to work on other stuff before getting bogged down with how people were being represented in the games and all this other nonsense. And now the bugs and the DLC are just normal.
Yeah,
People
exactly.
have forgotten about it. That was a big deal. But that was back, 2012, 2013. Now we go back to 1983. And to be honest with you, I'm trying to recollect my own memories of this, and maybe you have memories too. Did you notice there was a crash going on in 1983 with video games? I did not.
No.
But then again,
the only way you do is, and see, this is where, this is the difference between where we were as kids and where we are now. Right now,
I was 6 years old, so
right, and I was a few years older. Right. So I was playing the Atari. I was getting the games. Some were better than others. I didn't have the ET game. I played it at my buddy Patrick's house. And he could have it. I did have the Indiana Jones game, and honestly, they were very, very similar. If the games back then worked the way they do now, we'd say that they used the same game engine, but that's not the case. But it could have been a reskin, one of the other.
Was Pitfall a better Indiana Jones game than the one you got?
Yes, it was. Although it was a side scroller, it was definitely a side scroller.
That's good.
Whereas Indiana Jones and E.T. were side scroller and up and down scroller. So think about your TV screen as being one grid of a map, and then you'd move to the next grid, or you can move up and down from those grids. So you kind of had to map this out in your head, and it was kind of dumb. It was really kind of dumb. But anyway, we're not specifically going to be talking about just ET tonight. I wanted to get this update. This is real world stuff. This is important stuff. Troy, yes, the doctors were able to determine it was the allergic reaction, and she needs to flush it all out of her system. and it should take another 4 to 5 days. I understand. That's kind of crappy, but at least you see the light at the end of the tunnel. Not in that horrible way. I mean in the yeah. I'm getting there. Thank you so much for the and Netter's getting all excited because she's looking forward to.
Shimmy left, shimmy right, party fock is dancing tonight. Hearts go popping out his bum, wiggle, wiggle, here they come. Come. Cute as can be with a fluffy tail sway, spreading love in the silliest way. Party fox, you're the best. Boop, 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 you're simply the cutest mess.
So there you go. Thank you so much, Geek Flag with Nate Knows. Super appreciate that. But yeah, so we are. Oh yeah, I'm off the presentation. Let me get back on the presentation. So we are more informed now than we used to be between the internet and the fact that we're doing this, right? The way we do Geeky Geezers and so forth. We're keeping up on pop culture and entertainment news on a regular basis. I guess you could say it's kind of my job to pay attention to this stuff so I can, share my thoughts about it and kind of report it to you guys. But that wasn't the case back in the day. I was much more passive. I didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. I didn't know what was going on with business. Certainly didn't know about one company acquiring another company. I wasn't even really 100% clear back in 1983 exactly what the relationship between Atari and Activision was. I knew Activision was a different name brand that made games for Atari, but I didn't really understand how the licensing worked and all of that kind of stuff.
I was watching a video on that actually recently, and it became this big, nasty court battle.
Yeah.
And I think Activision won, but the settlement was Activision would be able to publish games to the Atari under license from Atari, like as a third party. And this was sort of the creation of what we would call third-party companies making games for consoles. 'Cause remember, back in the day, Namco may make Pac-Man for the arcade, but Atari were the ones that brought it to the Atari. They would make the game themselves. They wouldn't have Namco make it for them. They would buy the rights to make their own version of Pac-Man on the Atari or Wizard of War or something else. And I think later on, because of the Activision thing, that eventually other companies were able to start making their own third-party games on the Atari. And, well, maybe that's as good a place to start as any for how this whole thing began.
Exactly.
Because, because it was interesting, because when the guy was doing the video, he was even talking about Nintendo and Sega, and basically how sometimes game console manufacturers, they sort of saw third parties as a nuisance, whereas they wanted to control the whole infrastructure of the console, including the games that came out on it, and they didn't like other people bringing stuff out on it.
And
but this is from the New York...
I was just going to say, Nate is saying exactly what I was getting at. Back in the day, if we didn't subscribe to a certain kind of magazine, we wouldn't know any of this stuff. Now we geeks are more connected, and even the normies know what's going on. Yeah, the internet has been... I think we overlook how easily accessible information is. Just like current events, I didn't read a newspaper. I didn't watch the news as a kid. But now that stuff is coming at you passively on social media. So, every single time they lock down the Straits of Hormuz and bomb the crap out of Iran again because whatever. But, but it's absolutely true. Now we have we have the ability to say, hey, where is the next installment of GTA or whatever? And you can find, news articles. You can find commentary. You can see people bitching about, what they don't like from what they've heard about rumors and so on and so forth. And yeah, it's almost information overload at this point.
When I was growing up with the NES, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, things like that, I would buy gaming magazines. And it was in the gaming magazines where they would explain you know, what was coming out in the future, if this game is any good, and you would buy them at your local drugstore. And there was Game Pro, there was Electronic Gaming Monthly, there was one I really liked called Electronic Games. They would also do PC as well as console. But how I found out about the video game crash, though, that was from a book titled Game Over. I love this title, Game Over. How Nintendo zapped an American industry, captured your dollars, and enslaved your children.
Kind of
It
true.
was a-
Slasher Fred brings up a Nintendo Power magazine as well.
Oh yeah, that was a big
Welcome,
one too. In fact,
Slasher
I
Fred.
yeah, that was one that was house owned, but it was actually a very good publication. Even though it was kind of biased because it was published by Nintendo, but it was pretty good. Game Over, though, this book, that was kind of a tongue-in-cheek title. It wasn't as scandalous a book as you think it was, but it did go over to the rise and fall of Atari, and then it went into the rise of Nintendo. And I think it ended with like CD-ROM games on the Sega CD, how that was being introduced. So that was, but it kind of went through the whole history of what was going on in the United States, what was going on in Japan, it kind of explained like how poor Nolan Bushnell got kicked out of his own company, Atari.
Yep.
Like who
And,
bought it over? Was it? Yeah.
And
Go
yes, Boomer did get a new microphone. He says, your voice sounds different. Not bad, just different. Yeah, he's sounding a lot more clear. And I think that's a good thing. That's a good
Yeah,
thing.
we'll see how I'll listen to myself when the stream's over to see if there's any. Now I realized when I would listen to our last movie stream, I was hearing a lot of I don't know, unnecessary breathing on my end. I thought I need a better microphone, so I figured I would try it out this
There
way.
you go. There you go.
But the video game crash of '83. Our first article is actually a New York Times article from 1983. Hold on, am I there yet? Oh, I was on my own YouTube page. Come on, there we go.
gosh.
I made this through AI.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I
It
think it
looks
gets
like
the
they
point
caught
across now.
fire.
I guess it does. But from what I heard people talking about, like on podcasts years ago, how they said, you know, I did, like they said, when you were a kid, did you know what was going on? Well, you know, I noticed I would see a lot of games that I wanted, and they were in cheap and bargain bins, like for the Atari and stuff. And he
Yeah.
didn't quite know what was going on. He thought he was getting these really good bargains, not realizing that the industry had crashed. Now, at this point in time, my family had an Atari computer, and I think you probably had a Commodore 64 at this time.
Correct.
So, from our perspective, I don't think you and I were even paying attention to what was going on in the console sphere. 'Cause
No, I kind of,
yeah.
yeah, I
go
kind of
ahead.
moved on from the cartridges because it was so much easier to just make copies of discs.
Yes. Yes, people were doing it back then. That was for the Commodore. What was funny about the Atari computer could take cartridges, but they were like they weren't the cartridges for the Atari 2600. They were similar to the ones on the 5200, even though it wasn't a backwards compatibility. They were made just to use with the Atari computer, but you get like Pac-Man or Space Invaders and things like that. But yeah.
You know, it's interesting that Slasher Fred brings this up. 1983 brought us War Games. And you remember one of the premises was that Matthew Broderick's character was a bit of a hacker, and he would use the dial-up modem to call into, he was trying to find the number to get into a particular game company to find demos of the new games that were coming out. And
He went to his little computer store, right? As I recall?
right, and well, he did once he started getting information, and they were like, "Yeah, you didn't get into a game company, you got into a government computer," and but it was interesting that back then it was dial up, so you didn't know. You didn't have like an IP address that you would, specifically target. You would call phone numbers, and you could have your computer just dial all the numbers in your city, until you hit one that, gave you the, electronic sounds of a computer answering. It was just a very interesting look back at technology, but he was looking for games, just like we're talking about today here.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and read this article. So, video games industry comes down to earth. And I'm thinking,
Yep.
what are they thinking of, like Missile Command with the missiles crashing into Earth or something? I don't know.
Well, yeah.
The boom is over for the once high-flying world of video games. The electronic centipedes, outer space invaders, and spooky goblins that only a year ago seemed to have an extraterrestrial grip on the play hours of America's children are consuming each other like so many Pac-Men. Dozens of game makers that rushed into the field last year have dropped by the wayside, their visions of high profits proving to be as imaginary as the fantasy worlds pictured on the game screens. Though it once appeared that children would never stop zapping asteroids and blowing up tanks, industry people say that many youngsters seem to have become jaded by Donkey Kong and Chopper Command and have switched to home computers or returned to traditional, non-electronic fun. The result has been a jolting upheaval for a leisure diversion that 5 years ago barely existed and 1 year ago seemed on an unstoppable roll. As a group of video game manufacturers are expected by industry analysts to lose hundreds of millions of dollars on game consoles and cartridges this year, thousands of jobs have been eliminated. Just last year, Warner Communications Atari subsidiary reported a $180 million loss for in the third quarter. Retail merchants stuck with bloated inventories of unsold games have slashed prices and are praying for a Merry Christmas. Hundreds of video game parlors have unplugged their machines and closed down. This surprised me about the video game parlors. Part of me wants to check on the validity of that because I always thought arcades were going strong even during this crash, but maybe not.
Honestly, I see. That's why I find so. Oh, and I don't know if you mentioned this, but this is from October of 1983. This is an article from the time period.
Yes.
This isn't, a retrospective or anything like that.
I have retrospective ones in that later, yeah.
Right. But I do feel like arcades were a different animal because this is another thing. Games in 83 were very different in that there was that social element to it, right? I could go over to a friend's house to play a game on the console. We could trade cartridges back and forth. But we could also go to the mall, go to the arcade, get a slice of pizza, a soda, and, put our quarters up on that Pac-Man game or whatever it was that we were wanting to pump quarters into. And it was a social thing as well. And then when you ran out of quarters, you'd watch other people or you'd go talk to the girls, whatever.
I had heard on a podcast I like about that there was a rule that if there were quarters already on the arcade machine, that meant that machine was reserved for whoever put the quarters on there. Maybe the person had to get up to use the bathroom, and as a code of honor, you did not take that machine, or at least you waited a few minutes. Is that right? I don't know if that was etiquette that you knew about as a kid.
I never saw an incident where I came up to a machine and there were quarters on it.
Okay.
And I feel like that's the kind of thing where it's like, look, I have no way of knowing someone's coming back. I think somebody just walked away and forgot they still had quarters,
Okay.
But no, my experience with that was, yes, quarters were lined up, but they were standing right there waiting, watching the guy in front of them. It was never really any ambiguity in that regard, at least in my experience.
Yeah. So, were you interested to hear that apparently Warner Brothers was involved in this mess?
I somehow retroactively it doesn't surprise me that much, I don't know.
And speaking of which, this brings us to our next article. Apparently, they bring Rupert Murdoch into this in the next article.
Well, because they're probably coming at it from a business perspective.
Okay, the saga of Warner Communications has found buoyant chairman Stephen J. Ross is the sort of real-life drama that might be portrayed in the Hollywood movies that Warner spins out. A struggling boy from Brooklyn builds a $4 million conglomerate that includes one of the nation's premier movie studios. He hobnobs with Frank Sinatra. He helicopters to his East Hampton manse, and he marries in succession three beautiful women. Then one day his empire is threatened. The threat comes from outside Mr. Ross's entertainment conglomerates and from within. Last week, Australian media baron Rupert Murdoch announced he was seeking to buy up 49.9% of Warner Empire and even hinted at a proxy fight, an action that sent fears of a takeover rippling through Warner's posh executive suites. To fend him off, Warner frantically placed 25% of its shares in the friendlier hands of Chris Kraft Industries, whose ownership of television stations might cause regulatory problems for Mr. Murdoch. Whether that ploy will work is unclear, but these rapid-fire events were enough to send Wall Street deal makers shopping for a white knight company to buy Warner Brothers and protect Mr. Ross from his foes. Just how long the debonair Mr. Ross will remain at the helm of his carefully crafted business has become a matter of widespread speculation. Unless he can keep these people at bay, it's difficult to see where Steve Ross will end up, said Fred Anschell, an analyst with Dean Witter Reynolds. Still, it is premature to write him off. Mr. Ross's problems began long before Mr. Murdoch made his first rumblings in early December by buying 6.7% of Warner's stock. The company has been ailing for more than a year, ever since the sudden collapse of Warner's most dynamic business, Atari. And the last year has transformed Warner from a sizzling entertainment empire into a company burdened with problems. Its stock, which soared to $63 a share in 1982, and this article is from 1984, recently traded as low as $19, making it a tempting morsel for Mr. Murdoch or anyone with the money and the inclination to take over its problems and potential. So I included this just to show everyone the ripple effect.
Yeah.
This disaster happened. Like, this threatened Warner Brothers of a takeover by Rupert Murdoch. Remember Rupert Murdoch back in the day?
Exactly. And guys, this is a great little peek into how we got to where we are now. Now we're talking about a Warner Brothers Paramount merger. Back then it was Rupert Murdoch doing a takeover.
Yes.
Tim Hayes says arcades, I'm not sure exist anymore. If they do, it's rare. I know we've got one in my my old hometown of Brookfield. That's still there. It's been there for quite some time. And I know we still have, like, what are they called? Like
Dave and Buster's?
And no,
Chuck E.
Dave
Cheese.
and Buster's have all gone away. But Chuck E. Cheese is still out there, yeah.
You know what happened? The arcade was making a resurgence by having these things called arcade bars, where you would have these free-to-play arcade games, and you'd go and you'd buy a drink, and you'd have a drink, hang out with your friends, but then you could also play a game, maybe in the similar way you do karaoke or trivia night. And then the pandemic happened, and I think they all closed down because of that. I think they were having a resurgence.
We are still seeing the economic fallout of those ridiculous lockdowns. Just saying, so many businesses have gone belly up needlessly. And then you still have, honestly, we still have Hollywood still trying to recuperate. And it's like, look, you guys made bad decisions and you are still doubling down on them. You're still pushing your streaming services that are losing you money. You guys pretty much deserve to go out of business at this point.
Here's a clue for Hollywood. I don't go to the movie. I don't pay to the movies to go be depressed. I can watch the news for that. Okay,
right?
Just saying.
Exactly.
It's like
for free.
Did they? Where's this summer's Top Gun Maverick?
I know.
We had F1 last summer. That was close. Not quite, but it was at least the same director.
So far all year, though, one thing that I can say is that all the crappy movies are doing exactly as they should. They're failing. They're not even breaking even. So, at least we can be thankful that things turn out the way they should. And hopefully these studios start, taking the hint. I mean, it's not a hint. We're yelling at them and beating them over the head. But to them, it's oh, gee, I wonder if,
Yeah. So this was Rupert Murdoch, though. By the way, there's a funny story if you ever get the horror movie DVD Zombie, the Lucio Fulci movie, where the dapper English actor from that, who I forget his name now, but Ian something. He was explaining on the commentary track how they were not shooting in New York with a permit, New York City, and they kind of snuck into the New York Times building to get some scenes because the main character in the zombie movie was a newspaper reporter.
Right.
And apparently, a bunch of Italian cameramen were barged in on a room, and the actor said he thought it was being shared by Rupert Murdoch himself. And if you don't mind me cussing, Rupert Murdoch looks at the Italian camera crew and says, "Who the fuck are you? Fuck off!" And it was just.
I can imagine that. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Horror movies from the 1980s.
And what if
and
I did have a
70s.
problem with you cussing? It's you didn't give me a chance to stop you, so
I apologize. Anyway,
No,
well,
no, no,
we're
it's
far enough
fine,
in the
it's fine.
stream.
I was
Whatever.
going to say we are past
don't-
the watershed, and you know I think there's the what do they call it, the disclosure at the beginning, you know, warning, you know, there may be some language, just so you know. What is it? This stream is not for children. If you're a children, fuck off. You know. So there you go.
Okay. Anyway, kids, your video games went away because you were more interested in playing with toys. Boo.
Actually, I started getting interested in playing with girls, but that's a whole other story.
Well, you were older at this point. I'm thinking my age at this point. Actually, to be fair, I always consider video games part of the toy family. I know that's sacrilege, but
no,
look at this.
because you did buy those cartridges at Toys R Us, or you could.
I bought a lot of games at Toys R Us. I bought my Nintendo 64 at Toys R Us. I got the reserve card. I went in there on launch day. That was the only game console I ever bought at launch, was the Nintendo 64 back in the day. Because I would usually wait a few months because I know everybody, I have to have it on release date. No, you don't. It's not going anywhere. Enjoy what you have for a little while longer. Sometimes the best games come out for a console at the end of its life cycle, actually. So you have to rush out and get the new thing.
I love this. Remember, is this an ad from 1983?
Yes. I
So
made sure
remember,
I found
this is $1983. If personal computers are for everybody, how come they're priced for nobody? That same blurb could be done right now. You know, absolutely true. And those prices I'm looking at, going, yeah, actually, those are the kind of prices I would have expected from the past 5 years, not from 1983. You know.
Wow, some of those are pricey on there.
Yep.
But I think they have on here the actual Commodore 64 price. If you read it, it's actually a lot cheaper than that. But let me get to the article. This is from 1983. Under 1983 Christmas tree, expect the home computer. This is a big deal. You know, believe it or not, growing up, not everybody had a home computer in 1983. If you had one, that was considered premium technology, right? As I recall.
Yes.
Yeah. This is the year in which the home computer will join the sled and the bicycle under the Christmas tree. The numbers that outstrip even the most optimistic predictions, Commodores, Ataris, and Colecos are being snapped up from the shelves. Americans have embraced the home computer as their favorite gadget for a Christmas present, replacing the food processors and video games of Christmases past.
So the thing to remember about these early computers was the kids saw them as the new gaming console.
Yes.
But the parents saw it as a typewriter, as spreadsheets, as all of these tools that were good for the house, would be good for the kids in school. Honestly, I was going into high school, 1984. So 1984 going into 1985, I was going into high school. And one of my freshman year classes was basic programming. And I mean basic as in the language basic.
I see.
And sure, and my mom says, well, I got to get you a computer. You got to learn how to, because this is the future, right? And sure enough, I was actually surprised. The programs I was writing in basic at school, I could run on my Commodore because Commodore, ran on BASIC as well. So I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So I actually started writing some text adventures, for my Commodore.
I remember text adventures. Now, my brother got a lot of those, the Infocom games,
Yep.
the like Zork
Infocom,
and
yep.
Spellbinder. Was that one of them?
Yep.
Or Spelljammer?
I can't
Or
remember
something,
what
yeah.
it was called,
Okay,
but I
yeah,
know
it
what
was.
you mean. Yeah.
And then he had the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy game, which was actually created by Douglas Adams himself. He wrote the game, which I thought was interesting.
Yes, exactly right. And but I mean, mine were my games were a little bit more simplistic. What I actually did was I would take like Twist-a-Plot games or Twist-a-Plot books or Choose Your Own Adventures.
Very cool.
And I would turn them into text adventures because it absolutely worked.
Do you know what I did? It's funny you.
I did have Zork too. Yeah.
It's funny you did that because for a writing program, I took one of my old Choose Your Own Adventure books, pulled the entire thing apart, scanned every page, and then created hyperlinks in the document to actually, when you would click on go to page, it would jump to the page. And I used that for a presentation, and it worked out beautifully. It was trying to teach them plotting. But
that's really very clever. Yeah, we weren't at that level with these computers yet.
I mean, I'm not a computer genius, but I figured out how to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, but so I literally had to type in every single page, into it, and then it was all if-then statements. If this, then go here. Because that's exactly how the Twist-a-Plots were done. You'd get to the bottom. If you want to do this, go to this page. If you want to do this, go to that page. It was just, instead of going to a page, you'd go to a prompt number. So,
by the way, someone in the chat mentioned Wolfenstein 3D.
yes.
Oh, you sweet summer child. We had the
Right?
original Wolfenstein. That was not a first-person shooter. Remember those?
Yes.
Did you ever play
Yes,
the
I
old Wolfenstein games before it went 3D when they were like...
I saw it, but I didn't actually play it myself. No.
Think like Metal Gear, the old Metal Gear games on the NES, but like with like graphics that were maybe closer to something like Berserk. Okay, you know, it's like very basic.
Exactly.
But we had those. We had Wolfenstein and Wolfenstein 2, and I guess Wolfenstein 3 was the 3D one. I didn't think about that.
Exactly.
Okay. But
Well,
let me read. Yeah, go ahead. Though.
Games and videos, I mean movies, I mean by videos, were big on sequels, and when they got to the third in a series, they wanted to do it somehow in 3D for
3D.
3D, yeah. So and you got the same thing with the Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D, Jaws 3 in 3D. You know, it was a very common thing.
I'm surprised they didn't do that with Nightmare on Elm Street. Maybe at that point the gimmick had worn its welcome. But.
There wasn't any 3D Nightmare on Elm Street movies.
I don't think there were. No.
Surprise.
But anyway, getting back into the article, though. In fact, you know what's interesting about this article? It mentions Coleco had a home computer. I didn't know they had a home computer.
Did.
I knew
I had a
Coleco
buddy who had a
Vision.
Coleco. The Coleco
Interesting.
computer, yeah.
I wonder what they were like. But
I don't know, but again, this is, perception and reality may be two very different things. But my perception, and it was partly because Coleco, for kids my age, Coleco immediately made you think of the little watches, So when I heard Coleco computers, I'm like, it sounds cheap to me,
Yeah, I'd never heard of them. I heard of the Commodore because a lot of the Atari games we got on CD would come with the Commodore 64 disc and vice versa.
Yep.
But let's see. It says last year computers were new, unique, and expensive, said Eagle Juliuson, president of the Future Computing Incorporated, a market forecasting concern that expects 2.5 million home computers to be sold this Christmas, twice as many as last year. This year they're cheap and they have become the gift.
Yeah.
I want to make a point that growing up in the 80s, technological leaps happened like that. There were leaps and bounds every year. And I feel now we're lucky if we get leaps and bounds every 5 years. We don't even get that anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I mean, I don't think I'm wrong. Yeah, but anyway,
and it's not because we don't have the ability. It's because I don't see the will in the companies.
No.
The companies
I
are,
think that's what
are
it is.
unwilling to innovate, and there's a lot of laziness. A lot of laziness. Going back to what you were talking about, or at least alluding to, with the whole idea of pushing a game out because you have to hit a deadline, but the game doesn't work. So you have to, patch it, another patch, another patch, another patch. Patches break something else from before. It's pure laziness. It's how do I hit my goals so that I get my bonus and we move on.
The investors are happy.
The next thing,
we got the game out on that this certain date instead of letting the programmers get the time they needed, and maybe the programmers themselves weren't doing their job too. It's that sometimes that is the case too. Yeah. But.
Yeah. So just for perspective, Samuel Proctor's pointing out that his dad just commented to me that home payments in the 80s were like $500. Those computers were crazy expensive. Yeah, you're looking at 2 to 3 house payments for a computer. That's
a lot.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, nowadays you spend almost $2,000. That's about a house payment. But that's also because we're in an era where the computer price jumped incredibly because of the whole chip so-called shortage. And honestly, you guys have to look at global politics for why prices are so high. I'm not going to get into it right now, but let's just say pew pew is not a great way to bring the markets down for anything.
Hold on. I'm trying to see what the prices are here. TRS. I think the joke of this ad is that all of these computers that they're being advertised with the high prices are way too expensive, whereas if you read the text, what is the Commodore 600? Let me see here. Do you remember how much it cost you, or I guess your mom helped buy it for you?
I honestly don't. Yeah, it was a gift. And it actually wasn't the Commodore 64. I got the 128, so they shelled out a little bit more.
Where is the price? You're yelling at the other companies. Where's your price here? Well, I thought I read somewhere that it was 600. Okay, I could be wrong.
That sounds about right.
Currently, or back in
83.
Back in 83, yeah. What did it
Commodore
release as?
64?
Yes.
Yeah.
Alexa, how much was a Commodore 64 back in 1983?
$64 in 1983 is worth about $215.
No, that's not what we asked. Alexa,
okay,
how much was the Commodore 64 in 1983?
The Commodore 64 was priced at $595 when it launched in 1982. Want to know what that $595 would get you in today's money?
Yes.
That $595 would be worth about $2,058 today.
Wow.
So yeah, we are talking expensive. We're talking that that 500 was still pretty expensive relative, to today. But yes, it was a much more reasonable price than what you're seeing here. Now, there is another big difference that you have to take into account, and that's computers were very new technology. And every time a new technology comes out, we talked about this when we were talking about VCRs and VHS tapes and so forth, how the tapes were like freaking incredible, like $1,000, because you weren't meant to buy them. It was meant to be bought by businesses for renting. See, they weren't priced to own. However, that's how it starts. And as more and more get out there, the prices come down, and it becomes more affordable. That's the way it always was. It was that way with cars. It was that way with VCRs and VHS tapes. And it was the same way with computers. Over time, the price came down. and it became, okay, now everyone's got them. We're mass marketing them. It's significantly cheaper. But this was new. By and large, you got to wait for the rich people to buy stuff and then be annoyed because it sucks. And then the newer stuff comes out and it's better and you get it cheaper. So thank you, rich people, once again.
So let's go on to, but yeah, this was the, but basically I had seen it. We had the Atari computer, and I had just figured computers were the new game thing.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. But again, I wasn't really what you would call a gamer at this point. I would play my brother's games sometimes. I had a few games of my own. My dad bought me a copy of Dig Dug for the Atari 800 computer, which was actually a pretty good version of Dig Dug. In fact, if you get the Namco expansion for the recent Atari Anniversary Collection, you can actually play that version of Dig Dug. They included the computer version of it, which was kind of neat. But, yeah. Moving on to... let me see here.
Video games gain in Japan.
Yes, so this starts what happens.
Do I need to move so that you can see the screen? So video games gain in Japan are due for assault on U.S. Wow, we're going to war over computers, huh?
I feel in the 80s, people, and let's be honest with you, I think there's still some holdover stuff from World War II.
Oh, sure.
Where they're like, oh, they're going to attack us in other ways now. That, it's like...
That very much was in the late 70s, early 80s. There was still this attitude. And it was basically because, you'd hear your grandfather and your great uncle and whatnot talking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They're not building up their military because they're not allowed, but they're gonna fight us in the economy. Look at how their businesses are doing, and they weren't wrong. I mean, Japan didn't have the nefarious, take over the world mentality that my grandparents ascribed to them, but it was very true. They turned their energy from the military to business, and honestly, I've talked to Japanese businessmen that said, I lived that my grandparents had this very shogunate mentality of honor and the Bushido code and so forth, and they literally overnight translated that into business. The Bushido code was applied to business. And
interesting.
That's that was the so-called Japanese work ethic. So it's not wrong.
It's funny, the 1980s for Japan was like our 1920s with all these booming businesses. Like it was really an age of, we consider the 80s in the United States the age of excess, but even more so in Japan. It's kind of funny when you play the game Yakuza 0. It takes place in the 1980s when Japan was like, they had lots of money floating around back there. But this is the article. I find this kind of funny, though. I actually have to read it from the PDF. So, when last sighted on these shores, the video game monster was drowning in its own wretched excesses, seemingly close to extinction. This is from 1985, or 80, I think it's 86 this came out.
Yeah.
Like lots of other mythical monsters, however, this creature actually floated off to Japan, where it has mutated into a new and mightier species. I'm sorry.
It sounds like they're describing a game, yeah.
This is from Knight Ridder newspapers, Jonathan Take. I think this is from a local newspaper rather than New York Times, but anyway. Video games are rising from the ashes. In the last 3 years, Nintendo's family computer, or Famicom, game system has crept into 6.5 million Japanese homes, representing a phenomenal 19% of the population.
Yep.
More recently... go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. More recently, Famicom has been challenged by an even sleeker computer game, the Sega Master System. This is bringing back flashbacks.
Yeah.
Both game companies now are shipping their high-tech monsters back across the Pacific with hopes of conquering the United States. 2. And if the system's super game concepts and graphics and other engineering advantages don't bowl you over, maybe their monstrous 15 million in fall and winter 1985 advertising will. Yeah, that's the ticket. By this winter holiday season, virtually every youngster in television land is going to know about these gizmos. Bruce Lowry, president of Sega of America, predicts sales of between 400,000 and 750,000 of his systems this year. We're also going to attract a lot of interest from the 19 to 27-year-olds. Those are the people who were into Atari and Coleco games for a while, but tired of the systems, let them get dusty on the shelf because the technology didn't live up to the manufacturer's promises. Our system is the first one with the graphics on the box are actually matching up to the graphics of the game. Was there false advertising on Atari games?
Yeah. It's very true. I mean, look, all of the artwork on the Atari boxes were okay. I think the most obvious, the one that most people saw, because I think some of the Ataris, the game came packaged with it, was that game Adventure, right? It was a dragon and castle type of thing. And so on the cover, you've got this castle, you've got the dragon, you've got the knight with his sword. When you actually put the game in, it's all pixels, and honestly, the dragon looked more like a duck than a dragon.
It did.
It really did. And the warrior character was literally a square. And he would hold one object at a time, and if it was the sword, it looked like an arrow pointing at you.
Interesting. Well, it's what you had to deal with back then.
So yeah, there weren't those aren't graphics per se, by any real. I mean, it was what? It wasn't even 8-bit, was it?
No. The home computers, the Commodore 64 and the Atari 800, those were technically 8-bit computers, so they could produce something akin to 8-bit graphics. But it goes on to say Sega has developed 2 super density storage mediums for its games, a unique credit card size Sega card with 256 kilobytes of memory. That's not a lot, is it?
No, it's not, but it was a lot back then. It really was.
And a 1048 kilobyte, yes, that's 1 million plus bytes, mega cartridge. Both are a far cry from those 8 kilobyte Atari games of just 5 years ago, offering the sort of visual detail and user manipulation previously available only in dedicated coin-operated arcade games.
Yep.
FYI, Sega is best known for the arcades for Zaxxon, which I believe did come out on the Sega Master System. Turbo and Hang On. Nintendo is Papa to the Donkey Kong series.
That's right.
Nintendo doesn't quote technical specifications on its small and somewhat clunkier looking home video game that is rolling out to the US toy stores as the Nintendo Entertainment System. On a direct comparison of a motorcycle race, shooting gallery, and sports games, I felt that the Nintendo versions were not equal to Sega in terms of picture crispness or color options, but still look quite good and react just as quickly to the user manipulations. Fun fact, the Sega Master System could sport slightly better graphics than the NES. But Nintendo had other ways to get around that, which I'll get into in a minute. It's the content of the games themselves that determine if a system rises or falls, points out Nintendo president Hiroshi Yamauchi. He believes Atari collapsed because they gave too much freedom to third-party developers and the market was swamped with rubbish games. Nintendo limits third-party developers to just 3 software packages a year, but already has 117 titles out in Japan, of which 27 will be sold in the United States this year. So Nintendo didn't bar third parties, but they said you're limited to 3 games a year.
Yeah, they probably wanted some sort of right of refusal as well. Samuel Proctor says, "Has Gizmo ever been used by a young person? I swear, even in the '80s news, this '80s newspaper, it sounds like it's outdated for the time."
Yes.
It kind of was. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny because they named the one gremlin or Gizmo in the Mogwai in Gremlins Gizmo, but it's like kids didn't use the word Gizmo.
Right.
We
Was
called
it
it
his father
electronic.
that came up with Gizmo?
Gizmo Kaka.
Yeah, I think it was his father that came up with the term.
Yeah.
Because his father made gizmos, yes.
Made
Okay, that
gizmos,
makes.
yeah.
Yeah, that's something his father would have used. That's right.
Yep.
Because that's something. That's not a phrase. I called it electronics. That's what I called this stuff.
And remember, his dad was
his-
same generation as that other older guy who's always talking about WWII, right? Well,
Yes,
there you go.
W2.
That's the generation we're talking about here.
So I'm gonna long story short. Nintendo dominated when they came out here. After a while, it was interesting. They originally sold the NES more as a toy or like an entertainment system rather than a game console. That's how it was marketed. They were worried that if they sold it as a game console, it'd bring up memories of Atari and the collapse, and people wouldn't buy it. I don't know why the Sega Master. I don't know why the Sega Master System didn't take off over here. I remember there was a couple kids in my grade school that had a Master System, and they would get into nasty fights with the kids that owned NESs. I had neither at this point, so I didn't know what the hoopla was about either of them. Okay, but interestingly enough, though, the Sega Master System did very well in Europe. Many people in England and other European countries were very fond of the Sega Master System, so that had more of a following over there when they released it over there, and it was popular in South America. In fact, they were making Sega Master System games well into the 90s in South America. What they would do is they would take a lot of the Sega Game Gear games, which were similar technology, and just convert them into Master System games later on. It was interesting.
Despite the long history, the exact etymology of Gizmo remains a mystery. It first appeared in the lexicon of the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps personnel as a catch-all term for any equipment or unknown mechanism. Language experts, including the Oxford English Dictionary, officially recognize the origin as unknown, with the earliest documented print reference appearing in 1943 issue of Time magazine. So
Yes.
at least we know the era it comes from, and yes, we were absolutely right. It is the World War II era.
Yeah, it's right up there with Thingamabob.
Guys, Geek Flag Grenado says, "Hey, Troy, Ned, or Boomer, really want to stay, but I think everything I've been through this week, I could barely keep my eyes open. I will
Get some
watch
sleep,
the
dude.
show Memorex. Yeah, go take care of yourself and your wife. Understood."
But do we have an intermission tonight or no? I forgot to ask.
No, I
about
didn't
that.
load them.
Don't worry
and
about it.
honestly, the regulars have been seeing them for the past 3 days. They know what's going on, so we can just continue. There you go. There you go.
You had mentioned
So-
this in the intro.
I did. I did not. And is this an actual picture from that?
Oh yeah, this is from the news article where I got it from. I'm pretty sure this is an actual picture. I'm surprised Centipede is in there because Centipede was actually a decent 2600 game. It was for what it was a good conversion.
Bad.
Yeah,
It was honestly, it was the one game where when I saw it on the Atari, what was the next one after the 72 something or other?
There was the
more advanced
5200, and then there was the 7800.
Yeah, I think it was the 7800.
Yes.
I saw it, and it looked almost exactly like the arcade, and I'm
Yeah.
like, but it's not significantly better than, the earlier arcade games were just fine for Atari 2600. Space Invaders, Centipede were good. Pac-Man, they couldn't quite get it.
No.
They didn't have the memory for it. Sega couldn't get marketing right until hiring Tom Kalinske from Mattel. Nintendo's exclusivity didn't help. There you go. And welcome, by the way, Lester the Skeptic Tank Obsessions. Good to see
Nintendo
you.
was nasty back then, back in the NES days. Oh, they were they they would sometimes tell third parties like, well, if you bring out your game on our competition, well, maybe you don't bring out games for us anymore ever. How do you like them apples? And now this wouldn't work with certain games. Like Pac-Man would come out on anything, but like some of the newer stuff, it's interesting. Like I think Sega had to buy the rights to Ninja Gaiden because it's a popular NES game. But when they brought it to the Sega Master System, they made a completely new Ninja Gaiden game, which is actually supposed to be pretty good. But it's an original title. It's not a port of the NES game because I think that was verboten by Tecmo because they were worried about backlash from Nintendo on that. So,
and just remember too, this was also the era of kind of wild west of the games. Space Invaders, Pac-Man, and a lot of games like that. Maybe your company couldn't afford the license or wasn't allowed, but they would make a game that was basically the same thing. You know, they'd call it something different, change the character and the graphics, but it absolutely happened.
This is a problem with the Magnavox Odyssey, though, with Casey Munchkin, because the Magnavox Odyssey is actually technically the first home console. We had a Magnavox Odyssey. I remember I told you I didn't grow up with consoles, but we did have a Magnavox Odyssey when I was real little, and there was a game for it called Casey Munchkin, and it played better than the Atari 2600 of Pac-Man. But Namco got furious with this game. They went after them. And I think it's a little ridiculous. It's not. It was. I thought it was different enough from Pac-Man. You can't really sue them for having a maze game where things chase after you. I mean, lots of other companies have done that too. But yeah, they went after them in court. I don't know if that game is now prevented from ever coming out anything again. I don't know.
So, welcome to Joe's Atmosphere. Says Centipede is one of the cabinet sides I painted on the glass of our local arcade. The other two were Joust and Galaga. I loved both of those. I loved all of those games. I loved Joust, and I was supposed to have gotten Joust on the Atari 2600 because I sold more candy bars in my Boy Scout troop than anyone else.
Cool.
And that was the prize I chose, and I never got it.
That sucks.
I was pissed. And
well, did you follow up?
I did. Every time I saw my scout leader, I'd be like, "What's going on with that?" Nothing. I'm like, "Look, you teach us about follow through and honor, and I'm not seeing it from the Boy Scouts of America."
Okay, this is where you and I would differ. At this point, it'd be like, okay, so now who do I talk to make sure this happens? Because I earned that, and I'm going to get it.
That's fine, but Troy was a kid, right? How old were you?
Yeah, and I would have done that as a kid too. Going, I won this. I'm getting this.
I was in. How old are you when you were in like 8th grade?
Oh,
about 13 or so.
Yeah, I was about
12,
13, I guess. Yeah.
12, 13,
12,
yeah,
13.
around there, yeah.
But like I said, I would have been so ticked. I've been like, I earned this. I won this. Who do I talk to so I get it?
Yeah. Well, and that's why, I said, just don't look to me to get your candy sales
And
next
you're
year.
telling me it's your mother, and I know your mother did not intervene and go, where's my kid's game?
I don't know. But I never got it on the Atari 2600. And now I can play it for free because it's out there on the interwebs all over the place. So.
Supposedly the 7800 edition of Joust is very good. They are actually comparing it to the NES version, and they actually said, no, the 7800 is actually close to the arcade. But oddly enough, it was Satoru Iwata who actually programmed the NES version of Joust because he was doing it as a means to try to sell Atari on the idea of releasing the NES in North America, which Atari said, no, we'll release our own thing, thank you. Which, probably in hindsight, that was a huge mistake on their part. But,
I'll say something else. Here's another thing. I'm looking at there you can see the graphics for Centipede there. And you've got a giant centipede, like, floating through the air, and the kid or whoever it is waving a magic wand at him. And that did seem to be the lore of Centipede.
Really?
It was like you were a gnome or fae of some kind.
I thought you were like a space marine or something.
Well, I mean, that was your, I don't know if there was any, like, official lore. But again, you're talking about dots on a screen. You know, you could tell
No, that
what the spider was. You could tell what the centipede was.
That might have been the lore because people were into D&D and stuff like that back then. But I thought for some reason I always thought it was something more militaristic.
Especially since you would, I mean, if you think about it, you shoot the head of the centipede, and the head would turn into a mushroom. If that ain't magic, I don't know what it is, man.
Makes sense.
You know?
I think the man who made the game might have had some experience.
Maybe he had a few mushrooms, yeah. Maybe he was sharing with Mario, you know.
So now we fast forward a few years later, okay?
Right.
To it's 2005, I think.
Okay.
And apparently
we survived the Y2K bug.
we did. There had been a rumor that there were landfills of old ET cartridges because the game sold so poorly and Atari made so many cartridges. I think they made more cartridges than there were actual Atari 2600 consoles. And the game sold so poorly that they buried it in landfills. And people were like, nah, that's an urban legend. And then in 2005, someone decided, we're going to find out where this is and we're going to dig and see if they're there, right?
Yeah,
and,
I'd be interested if any of them actually still worked.
I'm curious about that. I bet they tried some.
It seems unlikely, but, you know, you never know.
You never know. Like, sometimes old Nintendo stuff works when it shouldn't.
Although, if they did find one that worked, they would probably wonder if it was worth all the effort just to satiate their curiosity. I would say probably no.
So we found something, said Zach Penn, and the crowd cheered. Penn, the director of films like X-Men 2, is making a film about the hunt for thousands or even millions of Atari ET cartridges that the company disappeared 31 years ago. No one has known for sure where they went until now. Now we know. For anybody who doubted, Penn continued, there's a whole heck of a lot of games down there. We just saw them. It was 12:45 p.m. local time today, and hundreds of people were gathered at the old landfill in Alamogordo. There's been lots of clues that the games, along with unknown other titles and hardware Atari didn't want anymore, had been dumped here. And yesterday, the crew making the movie had done an initial dig. As a result, garbage buried here for decades had blown up against an orange trash fence. As 1979 IRS form and an IRS optional state tax table, customer registered from the town said, okay, blah, blah, okay. But the crowd here was not for the games until they were actually spotted. No one was really sure they were there. Holding up this prize find, Penn said, put those doubts to rest. The game cartridge was nearly in perfect shape, though its packaging was ripped almost to shreds. In the background, a set of Atari 2600s and the ET game actually playing, not cartridge from the dump, were spitting out the distinctive 8-bit music from the game. It was perfect. Oh, they did try it out.
Wow! So that answers the question. Holy cow. It's too bad.
You know what's funny? It's interesting how packaging can get destroyed, but the stuff inside. This happens with toys, too. Where you could get like a really ratty box, but it was never open, and the stuff inside is actually in good shape.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
and see, remember, well, I'll speak to the toys in a second, but keep in mind that the Atari boxes had it was like a box inside of a box, and then the cartridge itself was this hard plastic that was mostly self-contained. Not so much the Activision, which was open on the one side, but the Atari proper games had the little lever action door.
They were probably well made.
Yeah,
because it was early technology. So yeah.
And if it was all it needed was to be in a cardboard box that prevented the dirt and stuff from getting into it, which it probably did. Once it was buried, it was cut off from weather and all of that. So yeah, that's why it was preserved. But yeah, you get a little bit of archaeology going on there. Imagine that.
It's archaeology for stuff that's worthless.
True.
It's kind of
that
funny.
Is true.
I have my uncle's old Atari 2600 games. I remember he said, "You want my old Atari games?" I had his console somewhere, but I couldn't find it. But it's like, and I was keeping my fingers crossed. Oh, please let it be a 7200. Oh, a 7800. Nope. Of course, his games are the 2600 games. And of course, it's Atari 2600 Pac-Man and not Ms. Pac-Man. You know?
I took a picture of the Atari 2600 cartridges that the one vendor was selling at ICC Con, just specifically for you. I said, Netter, get that picture for Boomer's benefit. I did not think you would be interested in any of them because there wasn't anything there that was like rare or anything.
But believe it or not, there are some 2600 cartridges that were actually pretty well made. Like, there was a decent conversion of Wizard of War for the Atari 2600. I've seen clips of it on YouTube. I mean, it's still basic, but it's getting the job done, which means I think some of these other games probably could have been better if they had followed suit with what they did. But I'm a big fan of the game Wizard of War, because that was another 800 cartridge I owned growing up. Now we go to the present, and now we go to retrospectives.
Right.
Okay. The video game crash of '83, how the industry nearly died.
Yeah.
So now, I don't know if any of you have had questions for what's been going on. Oh, yikes. I'm sorry, going back to the prior article, one of the headlines was corporate shame.
Well, and here's, you hear, you see a headline like this, how the industry nearly died, and you think, oh, that's overblown. It's only overblown because we have, decades of hindsight to go, well, that didn't happen. But it was so close that it could have happened. Think about the corporate mentality. You just lost a ton of money. Atari goes bankrupt, right? You have other companies out there thinking about how they can market differently. Nobody wants to break into that business now. Now you're looking at it going, it's not worth the investment. So I'm out of the gaming industry. So that's how a gaming industry dies. They assume there's no money in it any longer, so they stay away. And this is, we're seeing the same thing with the movie companies as well. Ooh. Oh, it's superhero fatigue. It's like, no, it's not superhero fatigue. There is still a desire for these stories. You just make crap movies.
Okay. I like superheroes, but basically what a superhero movie is supposed to be, like a lot of other types of movies, is it's a movie about good versus evil. Yeah. That's what they usually are. And good versus evil can take on roles in other types of movies too. Right. But when they start veering away from that,
yeah,
I think that's where people lose interest. But
I guess every stream that I do, I have to make a Fallout 4 reference. So real quick, just before the game, just before the stream, I was playing Fallout 4, and at one point, somebody is blowing smoke up the main character's ass and saying, you're such a good person, and you've got such a great reputation, and so on and so forth. And one of the options that you can respond is, "Oh yeah, didn't you know I'm a superhero?"
Funny.
I almost said that. I'm like, no. I'm gonna go the whole.
Maybe next time on the replay.
Exactly.
Okay, so in 1982, the North American video game industry generated $3.2 billion in revenue. By 1985, that figure had plummeted to approximately $100 million. That's a big drop-off.
Yes, it is.
97%. Dozens of companies went bankrupt. Retailers refused to stock game cartridges. Industry analysts declared video games a dead fad. No difference from the Pet Rock or CB radios. People still use CB radios.
Honestly, you can totally see. Well, yeah, but they're not as ubiquitous as they were. It's very niche now, and you could totally see companies thinking that is a fair assessment from their perspective.
Yeah. The crash of 1983 wasn't just an economic downturn; it was a near extinction of an entire entertainment medium. Understanding how it happened required examining three forces that individually would have nearly wounded the industry. Combined, they nearly killed it. So the first one was the game glut. Too much, too terrible. By 1982, the success
sounds a lot like what we keep saying about movies today, right? too many crappy films that nobody likes.
Well, here's the problem. If every movie that comes out you're disappointed by, you're just going to say, F it, I'll find something else to do with my time.
Yeah.
And I just
It's
will
not
abandon
worth
all
my time.
movies, whether they're good or not. The game got too much, too terrible. By 1982, the success of Activision and Imagic, both founded by former Atari programmers, had convinced dozens of companies that game development was easy money. Low startup costs, minimal technical requirements, and enormous markups attracted everyone from established toy companies to Quaker Oats, which owned a game subsidiary. Is this true?
Yep.
The barrier to entry was essentially zero. The result was a flood of terrible games. Companies spent millions on licensing fees for recognizable characters, but almost nothing on game design or quality testing. They were doing this when I was playing games growing up too. Sometimes licensed games, you would look at it like, is this going to be any good? Because it's based on a character. Do they spend all the money on the license and not on the guy programming the game? You know, it's like, nothing, no game design, no quality testing. Programmers worked under brutal deadlines, producing clones of existing hits with minimal creativity. The most infamous example was Atari's own E.T. the Extraterrestrial, developed in just 5.5 weeks by a string of programmers to meet the Christmas deadline.
Yeah.
Atari manufactured 4 million cartridges, more than the number of Atari 2600 sold that year. The game was so poor that returns exceeded sales. Atari reportedly buried millions of unsold cartridges in a New Mexico landfill in 1983. E.T. came out in 82, didn't it? They wanted to have a game.
Yeah.
They wanted to have a game out for it by Christmas. Now, when I was growing up with the NES, this did not happen. Like, Batman was a major movie in 1989, but we didn't get the game until spring of 1990.
Right.
Because they needed time to work on it and make it good, you know?
Yep.
But E.T. was a symptom, not a cause. Store shelves were drowning in mediocre Pac-Man clones, licensed cash grabs, and games that barely functioned. Consumers couldn't distinguish good games from bad ones before purchasing, and the ratio of garbage to quality was becoming unbearable. Trust evaporated. Yeah, well, that's what happens. You lose consumer trust. It evaporates. While game quality was cratering, the home computer market was experiencing a vicious price war. The Commodore 64, launched in 1982, was deliberately priced to undercut game consoles. Jack Tramiel, Commodore CEO, pursued an aggressive pricing strategy that dragged competitors, Atari, Texas Instruments, Sinclair, into a race to the bottom. By 1984, capable home computers could be purchased for under $150 with entry-level machines below $100. This created an impossible value proposition for game consoles. Why buy a machine that only played games when, for the same price, you could buy a computer that played games and did word processing, programming, and education? The Commodore 64's graphics and sound capabilities matched or exceeded the Atari 2600. It exceeded. Please. Because I know Commodore 64 was close to Atari's 800, and I know the Atari 800.
Yeah.
The games we got on that, while not arcade quality, they were a lot better than what the 2600 gave us. The irony is that once the dust settled, consumers realized there was room for both, and by then the damage was done. The console manufacturers were bankrupt, retreating, and under new ownership. Consumer apathy and market saturation. By 1983, the home console market was 11 years old, thoroughly confusing. Over 10 different systems competed for shelf space, each with incompatible game libraries. New buzzwords appeared weekly. Manufacturers promised revolutionary new hardware every 6 months, convincing consumers to wait rather than buy. The Atari 2600 reached market saturation. Nearly everyone who wanted one already had one, and newer systems like the ColecoVision, the Atari 5200, and Intellivision fragmented the remaining market. I had a cousin who had a ColecoVision. Remember that one?
Yep. Yes, I do.
They had Smurfs for it. I remembered Smurfs. Okay. The collapse. The dominoes fell quickly. Atari reported $536 million in losses in 1983 and was sold by Warner Communications to Jack Tramiel, ironically the same man whose Commodore 64 had helped cause the crash. Mattel shut down its Intellivision division, taking $394 million write-off. Magnavox exited games entirely. Coleco teetered toward bankruptcy, eventually filing in 1988. Coleco didn't release Cabbage Patch Kids, did they?
Yeah, I think so.
They put all their money into those dolls. That's what happened.
Probably.
And then when the fad went over, then they went. That's probably what happened. Third-party publishers either went bankrupt or pivoted to computer software. Major retailers like Toys R Us / gaming shelf space or eliminated entirely. That explains why when Nintendo released the Nintendo Entertainment Nintendo Entertainment System, they gave you a toy robot that would work with the games. His name was Rob. I think they included that with the system to entice toy stores to put it on the shelf.
I think you're right.
Japan was unaffected. The crash was almost entirely a North American phenomenon. In Japan, the market was structured differently. Nintendo's Famicom, launched on July 15, 1983, was thriving. Japanese retailers hadn't experienced the same oversaturation because Nintendo controlled quality tightly from the start. The Famicom's game library was curated rather than flooded, and Japanese consumers had a different relationship with gaming. It was more culturally integrated and less subject to boom-bust fad style. It's interesting, the Japanese market, too, they were also more prone to buy peripherals, like a disk drive add-on, whereas stuff like that would never fly in the United States. They kept trying to sell add-ons for systems that they would never sell. Yeah. But then it goes on. Nintendo's challenge wasn't technological, it was psychological. American retailers wanted nothing to do with video games. Nintendo's solution was brilliant on multiple levels. First, they rebranded. Famicom became Nintendo Entertainment System, deliberately avoided the word game, and it was styled like a VCR with a front-loading cartridge slot. Yeah, it was made to kind of resemble a VCR, how you'd put your tapes in a VCR. That's how they did the NES. And, they bundled Rob the Robot, operating buddy. They explained that. It was essentially a Trojan horse, a robotic accessory that made the NES look like a tech product rather than a game console, just like the Commodore 64 was supposed to look like a computer and not a game system. Okay. Nintendo implemented Nintendo Seal of Quality and strict third-party licensing. Okay. Third, Nintendo absorbed the risk. They offered retailers 90-day return policies, unsold inventory, set up NES displays to stores at their own expense. Retailers had essentially nothing to lose by stocking the system. Oh, so Nintendo would take the loss. If this thing had flopped, they would have taken the risk was on their end. Interesting.
True.
Smart on their part. Okay.
So Lester says, from my vantage point, there's a lot of glut now. It just means I got to catch up while AAA companies cannibalize themselves.
Oh, we're going to get into that. That's our last part of the thing, yeah.
And yep, Atari had to pay back for the suit incurred via Magnavox for Pong. Yeah,
I didn't know that. Did they sue over Pong and people are like, you can't own ping pong? Is that what happened? Maybe I'm mixing it up.
Well,
look at this. This is from the next article, so I need to credit them from what was the great video game crash of 1983 from Bugsplat. Bugsplat.com. I love Bugsplat. I love that title for some reason. But look at this. This is all the game consoles that were out during the crash.
Yeah. And two of them are Atari, so,
Well, the 5200 made some amount of sense because the 5200 could play games that were similar to the cartridges I got on the Atari 800 computer.
Right.
They had similar graphic levels, much better than 2600. It came bundled with what is perhaps one of the worst game controllers I'd ever seen. It looks like it has like numbers on it. I don't understand whose idea that was.
Now, a lot of these I don't remember or never saw. I knew, well, of course, the Sears Telegames was literally just a clone of the Atari 2600. But you had the Atari 2600, the Atari 5200, I knew. Intellivision and the Intellivision 2, the Magnavox Odyssey, and Coleco Gemini. I knew those games. I'd heard of Bally.
Bally Midway.
Yeah, but all the rest of them, I don't know these at all. So it's not a big surprise that they did not last.
I wonder if Joust was on the Bally Midway machine, or if somehow they couldn't have it on their own system.
That would be interesting to look into. I didn't really know it that well.
There was a Sears clone Atari console?
Yes. Yes, it played the same cartridges.
How was that allowed?
I have no idea. It was a very cheap version, though. I did not have it. But I know that of people that did. It's like, I want Atari. You got Atari at home. No, I don't. I have Sears Telegames. It plays the same games. Kinda.
Oh, that's so depressing. All right, I don't know how much of this I'll read, but because we're getting late in the evening. But too many. Okay, but bug splat. Let's see here. Okay.
Well, actually, Lester makes an excellent point. Copyrights were loose in those days. I'm going to go so far as to say that this was cutting edge, where it was really hard to claim copyright on little dots on the screen moving around.
You know what might have happened? They may have unsuccessfully filed a patent for the technology. They probably figured, oh, it's just software. We're going to worry about the software. Because what happens with Nintendo, like I have a high definition Super Nintendo called the Super NT, but this couldn't have been made 20 years ago because Nintendo probably still had a patent on the Super Nintendo. Now, eventually the patent runs out and anybody can make their own Super Nintendo clone, So.
And that's why it flabbergasted Atari when they went to Japan. Yeah. And honestly, see, this is the funny thing because I'm not this technically inclined, but I know people that are taking these old games, these old systems, refurbishing them and kind of kicking them up a notch, adding memory to them and doing all kinds of crazy things. So it does happen, It's kind of like taking a '57 Chevy, pulling out the engine and throwing in, a modern fuel injected engine and stuff like that. It can be done.
Can they run Doom on it though?
They probably can.
That's the big thing now. Can we get Doom to run? Someone's trying to get Doom to run on a Neo Geo. And
actually, what you could, if you want, you could totally build a clone of these systems, and instead of cartridges, just little thumb drives.
Yeah, basically. So the article goes, in the early 1980s, video games were booming in North America. Home consoles gotten cheap. Demand for new games was spiking. Everyone wanted in. Companies scrambled to feed the frenzy. The stage was set for the famous crash in gaming history. Yes, we already talked about that. How bad was it? 1983, video games were still a niche market, a tiny fraction of the size they are now. Keep in mind, they were growing, but they weren't what they are now.
True.
But then between 1982 and 83 peak in 1995, the North American market contracted by roughly 97%. That's a disaster.
Yes, it is.
What caused the crash? A few parts and too many consoles. This is what was interesting, because look at this. By 1983, a buyer faced dozens of competing systems, each with its own library, plus a sprawling web of third-party titles. It was confusing, and it killed the social side of gaming. Drop a few $100s on a console, then watch every friend buy a different one. Not much fun. There is a social aspect, especially back when I was.
This is what I was saying. Yeah, this is what I was saying at the beginning. If you could like swap cartridges and stuff like that. But I'm telling you, this is what we're talking about here. What the analysts are saying retroactively about this is the same thing we are saying right now about streaming services. There's too damn many streaming services, and I'm watching, whatever show, and you're like, have you watched this show? No, I'm watching this show. Oh, I can't watch that show, so I can't talk to you about this show, and you can't talk to me about that show.
Did you watch that? I don't know if you had a chance, but I sent you a clip about the guy from Sony. Hey, bro, how you doing? We're good, but I'm a little concerned. And he holds up a DVD in front of him. What's going on here? What's wrong with you? Why do you own this? Like explaining.
Yep.
And he's like, look, man, I just like to own the physical media. And he's like, well, what about Spider? You can watch Spider-Man 2 on Peacock. Oh wait, no, now it's on Tubi. No, now it's on Amazon. Nope, now you got to pay for it on iTunes.
Yes.
And it's like
I did watch that, and did you see the one I sent you back about what do you call it? No longer having physical media.
Yes, I saw that.
Yep. Exactly. Part of Nintendo's hypocrisy is when they historically went after emulation developers so they could control distribution of the games. Talk about controlling authorship. Exactly.
Yeah, they're
Keely
pretty.
Chow, good to see you, my friend. Haven't seen you in a minute.
Yeah, if you're distributing old games, not that that's technically probably not legal, but definitely don't do it with old Nintendo games because Nintendo will come after you if they own it. If it's another game like a Konami or a Capcom, they'll probably leave you alone. But I can't make any
Enigma
promise
is
there either.
also too tired to continue, so make sure you tip your waitress on the way out. But if you do, make sure you help her back up again. Settle your tabs and have a good night, my friends. Take it easy.
You know he tells that bad joke every time.
It's funny though.
That's true. It is funny. Honestly, I don't remember ever hearing that from someone else. I honestly think I came up with that myself. But I don't hold me to that. If you,
No, honey, that joke's been around for a long time. Old joke, new audience.
I don't remember ever hearing it anywhere before. 1983 is your birth year, so we're talking about your birth year. There you go. I'm a Nintendo guy and an Xbox guy. Well, good luck to you on that going forward.
Well,
I think we're getting into this pretty soon, but I do think the end of the consoles is coming yet again.
Nintendo will survive, but I've argued they've moved to portables at this point. But
Yeah.
I don't know what's. I mean, there's a lot of factors. Don't worry, I take a jab at Nintendo later too. But no, I think what he was meaning though, that was what he grew up with. Because technically, you could have just owned Nintendo systems and then moved on to Xbox.
True.
I almost went with the Xbox over the Nintendo Wii because I thought, oh, they have the Xbox Live Arcade and I can play old games through that rather than the Virtual Console. And then a friend of mine came and I was over a friend's house and he had his Xbox 360 and he was like, oh, I'm on my fourth one. I was like, wow, that's weird.
Wow.
How can you be on your fourth Xbox already? Guess that's a fluke. And then I look online and apparently there was this thing called the Red Ring of Death where Microsoft knew there was a manufacturing error in the system, and rather than fix it, it was probably just cheaper to have people send their consoles back and get a new one than it was to actually fix the error. And I was like, no, I'm getting a Wii now because I was
And
mad about
honestly, how do you continue to do business with a company like that?
they were the most successful that generation.
Then I just think that the market is absolutely stupid. They know you're stupid and they count on your stupidity.
I think later on they made an Xbox 360 Slim that didn't have that problem, but yeah, for years that was going on. And I was like, wait a minute, it knowingly breaks. Your console knowingly breaks. Microsoft, fix it.
Yeah.
Oh, according to this, Purina Dog Food made games for the Atari.
Sounds about right.
Okay, so this is a lot of the same stuff. The home computer undercut everyone. So especially Commodore 64. Well, good on Commodore. That's probably how you ended up with one.
Yep.
And what ended the crash and save video games? It was the Nintendo Entertainment System. Nintendo President Hiroshi Yamauchi said Atari had collapsed because they gave third parties too much. Okay, so this is basically the same stuff I read.
Yeah.
We never actually stopped playing. It's worth pushing back on the tidiest version of the story, the one where gaming simply died on Nintendo until Nintendo wrote in to save it. Yeah, that's not true. Plenty of people kept playing, Atari games kept selling, and television's IP outlived Mattel's exit and shipped new titles into the 90s. Yeah, I think people were still playing on Atari consoles, even up until the NES came out. I mean, I think games came out. It's just that there was just a lot of fallout from this.
Yep. It was a huge contraction from billions to 100 million, you know.
And people played PCs, and people still played in the arcades. You can find arcades games from this time, so. And let me get to one more article. Yeah, it's getting late. Let me start wrapping some of this up. Here's my last article of the night, and then we'll go into a little bit of the present day.
Is this that game where you're pushing the thruster trying to land on a planet?
I don't know.
Yeah,
but I put this. I put
a
this.
spaceflight simulator. Yes, that's exactly what it is. You only have so much fuel, and you've got to use that fuel to land. If you don't use enough, you'll crash too hard, and if you use too much, well, then you run out and then you crash. You know.
So this is from DavidMullock.com, and the article is working in the game industry before and during the crash of '83. So this is a veteran programmer. So he tells the story of actually being a programmer while working in there. This is kind of neat. I've worked in the video game industry for a long time. It often surprises people when they hear how long I've been developing games. 36 years. I made my first game professionally in 1979 when personal computers like the Apple II and TRS-80 were first entering homes, although several years after the Magnavox Odyssey and Pong had already found their way into the living room. Someone recently asked me what it was like working in the game industry before the crash. Ah, the crash. It still causes a shudder down the spines of those of us who lived through it. The video game crash of 1983 was a massive recession of the game industry that actually lasted from 1983 to 1985. Revenues that had peaked at $3.2 billion in 1983 fell to $100 million by 1985, almost destroying the industry while it was still in its infancy. I worked in the video game industry for 6 years before the crash. However, I didn't work on console games, which were the primary casualties of this crisis. I worked on home computer games, which was the cause of the crash, which was one of the causes of the crash. There were actually three things that contributed to the crash. First, there was a glut of poor quality video games on the market, including high-profile failures like E.T. the Extraterrestrial video game, for which there was such high expectations before implementation that the poorly received title was overproduced and much of the inventory was buried in the New Mexico desert. Second was an over-flooded console market, which just about every electronics manufacturer introduced their own video game console, only to bail out after the fierce competition caused prices to be reduced to nothing. Third, the introduction home computer provided additional competition for the family's home entertainment spending. As I said, I first worked on games for home computers for much of my early career in the games industry. I remember it as being an exciting time where there was a whole new world of interactive entertainment emerging, and as pioneers in a new medium, we were free to explore all sorts of crazy ideas before genres and game mechanics were being solidified. Things that you just couldn't do once the big publishers controlled the industry, until indie development came into being thanks to Steam, the App Store, Congregate, and other indie portals. I worked for a very small publisher and designed program games in a team consisting of only 3 people, me, myself, and I. Get that joke? Okay. I developed games for such bizarre things as colonizing planets while preaching religion and using mind-expanding drugs. Running an oil company during the oil crises, programming a television network, and being a spy trying to escape his mind-controlling captors in an adventure game based upon the Prisoner television series. That's a cool idea. Those of us who design computer games saw our work as being much more sophisticated than the types of games being developed for arcade and console games. I remember this. There was a knock at arcade games in the game Wishbringer for the old Infocom game, where the people playing the coin-op games were like zombies in the arcade because they weren't playing the sophisticated game you're playing on your computer, you know?
Yep.
But he remembers attending one of the first computer games developer conferences, and the big point of debate of whether video games could be rightly considered games and should be given the same consideration at the conference. This snobbery bias towards lasted several years until the conference dropped the word computer from the title. This was, there was snobbery. The PC master race thing was around back then, right? I mean, it was,
Yes.
While working on computer games was very fulfilling creatively, I didn't make a lot of money and made a meager sum of $800 a month when I got my first job after graduating college. The company, EduWare Services, was run out of the founder's apartment. He and I worked on folding tables in the living room while our sales rep worked out of the bedroom. Our fourth member would only show up occasionally while he was finishing his bachelor's degree at UCLA. We would churn out a new game or educational software in anywhere from 3 days to 3 months, depending on the scope and how badly it was needed to bring in revenue. When one of us made a product, the other would test it. When it was ready to ship, I would usually be the one to make copies, inserting 5.25-inch floppies on at a time into the disk drive. We would print out disk labels on standard mailing labels using a daisy wheel printer, photocopy documentation of the nearest copy place, and then put everything in a Ziploc bags to ship off. We did make a profit, and within a year we made enough money to move into a real office, and then a couple years later into an even bigger one. Our staff grew to 60 employees when EduWare reached its height, and I was earning enough money, $35,000 a year, to trade in my Honda Civic for a Toyota Supra. What do you think of that, huh?
Yeah.
He switched over to the Folgers instead of the store brand, I bet, too.
Oh, gotcha.
Our growth was successful enough to attract the attention of mainframe entertainment software company Management Sciences America to purchase us so that they could gain a foothold in the home computer industry. And then there was the crash. Our sales went to nothing, and MSA dissolved our company. Isn't that great? The bigger company buys you out, and then you get dissolved and fired.
Yep.
Does it sound familiar?
Yep.
Four of us
Exactly.
got together to form a new company, Electric Transit, which specialized in 3D simulations like Wintergrass, a survival adventure, and Lunar Explorer, a spaceflight simulator. Our games were well reviewed, but alas, the crash was still in effect, and we never made enough in sales to keep the company going. We worked for 2 years without a salary, with only a collection of good reviews from game magazines to show for it. After the crash ended, I joined the Walt Disney Company as its very first video game producer, but that was another story for another day. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting, seeing the perspective of an actual programmer that was in this. Too bad, huh? It looks fun. Lunar Explorer?
I had that game, yeah.
Okay. Did you copy it? No, I'm
probably.
kidding.
Almost certainly. And honestly, it was an impossible game. It was... I don't think I was... I think I landed that Lunar Explorer like twice. And I was like, forget it. I'll never be an astronaut. I'd, blow us all to Kingdom Come.
Maybe being an astronaut was actually easier.
Well, honey, if you were an actual astronaut, you would have gotten training.
Well, true.
All right, here we are in the present day. I'm pointing out things that I have an issue with in modern gaming, and whether or not these are going to result in a crash or if the industry's too big to fail, as other people say. Because I guess I don't know why Xbox is still a thing at this point. Microsoft, if you want out, I'm sorry, the PlayStation is not going to replace the personal computer at this point. It's not happening. Your fears, you've won, okay? That was the reason they came into the game market to begin with.
Yeah.
They were worried PlayStations become so sophisticated, people would be using them like PCs and not use Windows software on it. And then, of course, it turns out they were ignoring things like tablets and smartphones, which they should have been focused on that and not game consoles, but whatever. I think that one of the big problems right now is games are too expensive.
Yeah, especially for what you're getting. It's kind of ridiculous.
Now,
especially, again, when you're talking about a game that comes out and it doesn't work to begin with, and you have to wait for a patch, and then you get a little further in the game and it still doesn't work, so you got to wait for another patch.
I was shocked to learn about this because after the Mario Kart debacle last year, I thought Nintendo might ease off on the $80 game, but they announced another one. Nintendo knows fans will pay. New Fire Emblem confirmed to cost $80. Now, I don't own a Switch 2, but even if I did own a Switch 2, there's no way I'm paying $80 for a Fire Emblem game.
Right.
That should be $60 at most. I don't know where their sense is. Frankly, y'all screwed up the last Fire Emblem game anyway, which was Engage, which had a horrible treehouse localization. And I'm not going to pay $80 for bad English scripts in my game. I'm sorry, this is not happening. And apparently it's over $100 for like the collector's edition. I'm like, I don't know where we are.
Did you see this, Boomer?
Oh, I just stumbled upon a jailbreaking guide for the PlayStation 4, putting it on Linux. Well, that may come in handy for me someday, because I own a lot of PS4 games.
I had just shared a...
We're going to talk about it Sunday. Apparently someone's done it for the new PlayStation 5.
Yep, and that's what that video was that I sent you. It was a jokey thing about it.
Okay.
But it's... yeah.
Be careful. Especially with newer consoles. I know Nintendo, they didn't like the idea that people could buy this little device where you could take your regular Nintendo Switch games and play them on your computer. Now, I would argue that should be perfectly legal because you own the software. You bought the software. And now, if I make illegal copies and distribute or sell it, I get why they might come after you. But you're just making
it's going to
copies for your own
require
use.
somebody to sue them under fair use. Nobody is doing that because, unfortunately, for your $60-$80 game, the cost to take the company to court, you can't afford that.
They will outlawyer you.
It's going to have to be something like a class action suit or something.
Or the government getting involved, maybe.
Yeah, right. Well,
I know. Don't hold your breath. I think $80 is ridiculous. And of course, we also had the disaster, which was the Grand Theft Auto. I'm not reading the articles here. I'm just going off recent headlines. Okay,
Right.
stuff I either didn't cover on Geeky Geezers because we had too many stories that week, or stuff that came out this week. Tech analysts calls GTA's 6's $80 price tag ridiculous. I agree. Oh, they should be charging $200 for their titles. This is the problem. It's these analysts, it's these investors. They're part of the reason why this stuff is happening too. Outside forces from the game companies, $200. I'd love Rockstar to try releasing it for $200, and I think it would collapse. I think people are going to get suckered into buying this thing at $80. I'm not going to lie, but I think at $200, no, they won't buy that.
I've been hearing too many things about Grand Theft Auto 6 that just make me think it's not worth it to me at any price.
The head designers and writers that worked on all those games, they're no longer at the company. They did not work on that game. I'm just warning you guys ahead of time. Maybe wait for reviews to come in before you decide. I mean, I wouldn't be buying it anyway. I say consoles are too expensive.
I love this. Deleted Scenes summed it up perfectly. $200 for an empty box? F off. Exactly.
Well, we're not there yet, but give it time. But that was what an analyst said they should do. Now, of course, I do agree that it's not all the console manufacturer's fault. I think AI demand is jacking up prices for lots of things. Yep. And this article says iPads, Nintendo Switches, other gadgets. See, we don't say gizmos, we say gadgets in the present day.
There you go.
Okay. What experts say you should
Who's
do.
it's and what's bobs?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to play my last-gen consoles, because apparently games still come out on them, so I'm okay for a little while. Though I really don't want to be even buying games on PlayStation at this point, or on Xbox, because Switch 2 sales drop following price increase. Japan's hardware estimates are in June. Now, I will defend Nintendo on one thing. That I could tell they didn't want to do a price increase. I think they launched it too high. I mean, to be fair, they did put a lot of power into the Switch 2, but still, I think 450 is too much. And now it's gone up 500. And unfortunately, they had priced the Japanese console lower. It was region locked, and they priced it lower than the European and North American versions. But unfortunately, they now had to raise the price of the Japanese version as well, and sales have now cratered on the Switch 2. Now, how badly, I don't know. But they're not the only ones. PlayStation 5, they did their price increase, and guess what? They fell off a cliff as well. Yeah. Remember on Geeky Geezers when I was talking about the price increases?
I'm gonna say this too. We've talked about how the price increases are related directly to the AI, the data farming, and the lack of chips. We see it through the gaming, but you're going to start seeing it in other areas of the economy as well. When just any business trying to buy computers to do their daily business, when those prices start going through the roof, well, all prices have to raise for them to pay to do business, right? So, good luck. Same thing I keep saying about gas prices. Well, you keep shutting down the Straits of Hormuz and bombing the crap out of the entire Middle East. Well, you shouldn't be surprised when you see diesel prices going up.
The truckers.
And guess what? That means everything that gets shipped, which means everything goes up.
Yeah, so obviously they're being affected by all the stuff going in the world. Was there another one here? Xbox sales are lowest ever of the month. PlayStation's lowest since 2000. Xbox is doing terribly too. Xbox, I'll be honest with you, they should be selling at a loss just to get those things off the shelf, but they don't want to do it.
And like Lester said, selling consoles at a loss historically is finally catching up with them.
They used to do that.
Yeah.
Nintendo famously sold the Nintendo 64 at a loss. I think the
now,
other companies also did that. Yeah.
There is a certain amount of marketing intelligence there. You sell the game at a loss because you're going to be selling all these
discs.
Games. Yeah, the discs.
And the discs cost nothing to make. I mean, the
Right,
PlayStation
right,
2
right.
disc, it's a burned DVD. You You sell that, and of course Sony gets a cut of any game sold, even if it's one they don't make. So
True.
you can get a cut, make a cut on the console, but you'll make it on the back end with the games. But things have now changed because now everything wants to go digital because they want more money. But we'll get to that in a minute. Analyst says game console shipments expected to decline 19.5% to 33.9 million units in 2026. Now, again, is this crash worthy? I don't know.
And we also don't know how accurate that is. It could be more. It could be even worse.
I think the real warning is when the next Xbox and the next PlayStation launch. Those are the ones that I think that could be the clincher. So no physical media. So of course it's no surprise Sony. It was kind of a surprise to me. Well, not a surprise to Troy here, but they're getting rid of their physical media starting in what is it? 2027? I think they said.
Yeah.
Or 2028. I think 2027 is the last year. Analysts say Sony unlikely to reverse disc phase out despite backlash. We have no idea what Xbox is going to do. Nintendo still releases games physically. Sometimes they're on a game key card in which the game is not on the game key card, but most of the stuff they at least release themselves, they're on the actual cartridge. Okay, so Nintendo is better than Sony right now as far as this goes, but if not a PS6, then PS7. Analyst says PlayStation ending physical discs was bound to happen as the console ecosystem is nearly entirely digital at this point. I feel that this is another bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
I think people
it doesn't
think these
have
figures
to be.
are wrong.
Again, this is just like the stupid argument, well, Superman had to snap Zod's neck because blah, 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 blah. No, because they wrote that. They decided that was going to be the case. They did not have to make that decision. And the same thing's happening here. Well, it's inevitable. No, it's only inevitable because you've decided it. You know what? What's also inevitable? That if you keep taking stuff away from people, they'll stop buying your product. That's supply and demand. The demand will go away. And yeah, you're right. There won't be any cartridges being made. There won't be any discs being made because no one's going to buy them anymore. Your company will go out of business. Unless people are this stupid. And they're like, here, take my money. Just keep taking my money.
You were away for the weekend when I guess this wasn't the big story of the week because it was, of course, Sony going all digital.
Right.
But another article earlier that week, they had an investors meeting where the head of the Sony said that they were not going to be eating the costs of the PlayStation 6. Okay, we're not going to do that, and they assumed that the customer, they predict will pay the increased costs, and they're already predicting minimum $1,000. I think it'll be more. Now, we don't know what the costs are yet. This is a speculation, but that's what I've heard. There's no way it can cost less than $1,000.
Works out for them.
Yeah. So
because honestly, you're also talking about an economy where you can't even afford to fill up your damn gas tank, and people are going to shell out over $1,000 for a game console. Screw you.
With no physical games or no consumer protection rights, one storefront.
Nothing. No, you're not getting my money for nothing.
They control the storefront. At least on PC,
and I'm telling
you,
I will have nothing but derision for anyone who does buy these game systems. You are a moron. And they say an idiot and his money are easily parted. You just have to prove it.
Commissioner says the EO can't stop Sony from ending physical games. Companies are free to offer games and services in the manner they see fit. They said, no, they have the freedom to do this.
Yeah.
Because I think the EU is usually better on this stuff than we are as far as the consumer rights goes. But they said, no, they can't do anything to stop this. So it's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen with the Xbox Project Helix, whether or not it will still have physical discs or not. Nobody knows at this point. I doubt it, but I'm not going to speculate until I know for certain. And I think, honestly, I think worse than all this other stuff, though, I'm telling you, it's all the layoffs. As a PC gamer, I've been buying digital for 6 years. It's been fine. My perspective of console games are way more up in arms. I think because there's more protections when you buy games digitally on PC than you do on consoles.
So one of the things that's been coming up, and by the way, welcome Critical Thinking and Drinking over there on the X. One one of the things that people are pointing out is, look, if you buy on GOG, what is that?
Good old games.
Good old games, yeah.
Yeah.
They have a backup system for you, built in, that you can take advantage of. Also, as I was talking with Boomer on a previous, what do you call it, Geeky Geezers, same kind of thing. I have Steam, and there are games that I have on Steam that there are no games that I have on Steam that I paid full price for. I've been talking about how I bought what's it called, Fallout 4, and all the DLC that goes with it, and it was like
$30, I think.
It was like $30 for all of it. I have gotten so much play value out of it. If this was like a license or a lease or whatever, I'm fine with it,
You could also still play the games you bought 20 years ago or whatever on Steam. They don't get rid of the stuff you bought. Even if they get rid of it on the storefront, you still have access to it if you bought it. So I think they're doing better. And to be fair, game consoles weren't as bad with that up until recently. Like Sony, if you bought a digital game on your PS4, you could bring it over to your PS5. Same goes for Xbox. So I had a feeling there was some level of trust, but I with them going where they're going now, you're not going to be able to bring your physical games over. And with only one means of buying games now, it's instead of having, because with PC you have multiple storefronts. With the game consoles, you have physical, where you can buy games on many different storefronts physically, and then you have the digital storefront. So at least there's competition. Do you understand?
And this is where I think their hubris will be their downfall, because as soon as somebody loses a game that they paid for, and they're like, well, then if you're going to take it away, then give me my money back. No, we don't have to, because you don't own it. Okay, fine. You never get another damn dollar from me ever effing again. Congratulations. Hope that $60 you got from me will last you, because you're never getting another dollar from me.
This happened to me with Audible.
Yep.
Audible got worse, like in the last couple of years, because you could like subscribe and you get like tokens each month, and you can buy a digital book, an audio book, and I would do that because frankly, buying physical audiobooks, it's too many discs. I'm sorry, it's too much of a pain. But I would get a few digitally from Audible, but the problem was they were doing some nonsense. We're like, oh, if you cancel your service, you don't get access to your prior titles, and or you better download them, blah, blah. Okay, you know what? Or you can just suspend your service for 3 months. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do about this. I think they're trying to screw me, but I can just suspend it for 3 months, not pay, and then I'll figure out what I'm going to do after that. When I came back after 3 months to the service and looked at it, 2 of the books I had purchased were no longer on my account. They weren't available. I'm like, but I had purchased these books. They were audio. I mean, I purchased them with my tokens that I got each month. And they were like, no, they're not available anymore. We lost the license. Yes, but I had purchased them. This wasn't which means it was just a glorified rental was all it was. And I downloaded all the books I had on it, and I canceled my service.
And this is why the mantra has begun. If buying isn't owning, then pirating isn't stealing.
Yeah. Awful.
And whatever books you're missing, there are ways.
People had a real problem. Like, they had better means of storing your audiobooks too, and then Audible got rid of that. Audible, I thought, was a pretty good service up until a couple of years ago, because they got greedy and they want control.
Yep.
And this is what happens. But we have the layoffs, and the layoffs, I think, are the worst things that's been going on lately, because if you get rid of all of your talent, and granted, some of these people weren't, weren't doing the job.
But some of them were also the actual talent.
Yes.
And they're going away too. Hopefully what they do is they all get together and go start their own company.
Be indie developers, yeah. They should go in the indie scene. And indie is thriving on Steam right now.
Yep.
But a studio shattered the aftermath of the mass Bungie layoffs. Yeah, Bungie's basically gone. Bungie created Halo, you know, and they're now a shadow of the former self. And that's Sony doing this. That's not even Xbox. And of course, Xbox has been a nightmare as well. And its software producer says You'll never get another World of Warcraft or Elder Scrolls Morrowind in the current climate in the wake of Xbox layoffs. They got rid of all their programmers.
Yep.
So you're not going to be getting these big AAA games like you used to because the talent's gone. Now, like I said, we may get some good AA games. We'll still probably get games from Japan because they're not. I don't think they're as ruthless in the Japanese companies as far as firing their programmers. They'll just shift them around rather than getting rid of them. And then you have the indie scene, which there's a lot of great stuff coming out from the indie scene, like the first person shooter where you're shooting characters look like they're from a Mickey Mouse cartoon. Like a black.
Exactly.
But I'm just gonna say this. I was gonna put things about the future, but I don't know what the future holds. But
Yes, we do. We know exactly what the future
okay, well,
holds.
you
we just told you, because past is prologue. It happened before. It's happening again. Just think before you spend your money. I mean, it's not that difficult. What do you own when you turn over your money to this corporation? Will you be able to play that game, for as long as you want to play that game?
Yeah.
If the answer to that is no, don't give them any damn money, you moron.
And they wonder why I look longingly at Lego sets still, because I'm like, what's interesting about Lego? When Lego makes announcements, it's interesting stuff. And I don't know, maybe there's a toxicity in the Lego fan community. Maybe I don't know if there's been a dip in quality or expense, but from an outsider perspective, someone who's looked back at Lego since I was a kid, it's usually positive and interesting news whenever they make announcements. Whereas with gaming, it's usually a new disaster is happening. Yep. And this does not fill me with consumer confidence, as they say, in buying these products.
Not at all.
And I'm starting to get
angry?
Yes.
You should be. You absolutely should be. That is the correct response. If you had any other reaction, I would question your intelligence.
So, yeah, I'm thinking it's a handful of games on my Switch, and I'm calling it a day until the industry gets its act together. I'm just
Agreed.
done.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Agreed.
And maybe, who knows? Maybe I'll move on to PC at some point because there may not. Well, I may not have a choice because I don't know if we're going to have, at the rate they're going, we may not have consoles in a few years. Because, like I said, Nintendo will probably survive because they do portables. They got to get costs down though. But the Sony with this closed system console with no discs, I just don't get it. And I don't even know what the Project Helix Xbox is developing is. It could be a gaming PC for all I know. It may not even be a console. So I don't know. Okay, that's it.
All right. So what do we got coming up? We got tomorrow is Saturday. It is over on Big Al Presents the Time Bandits, classic film. If you didn't see it in mega rotation on cable as a kid, come check it out with us. You'll be glad that you did. Sunday, of course, Geeky Geezers. We'll be talking more about this particular topic on Geeky Geezers. There's no doubt about that.
There'll be some good stuff on Geeky Geezers. I have actually discovered a new TV show that I'm quite enjoying, which is surprising. It's actually bright and bubbly and doesn't depress me, and it's a French TV show too. That's based on a Japanese anime, which is even weirder. And I'm actually
yeah.
Wait, a French TV show based on Japanese anime.
Yes.
Wow.
And it works. I'll go into it on Sunday, and it's funny because apparently they have been trying to get the rights to this manga for years to make as a French show, and they finally got it. And I've watched the first episode, and I really dug it. And I like the actresses they cast. It's in French though, so I got to watch with the subtitles. But it's good. There you go. I'm saying something nice about France tonight, okay?
There you go. There you go. So Monday night we will be watching the 1954 epic Ulysses on or at least the members will be on my channel, 9 Central, 10 Eastern. Because look, you don't want to go see the Odyssey. Go check out Big Al's 10-word review. When Big Al doesn't have anything nice to say about a movie, then you know it's gonna suck.
That's not good.
So let's watch the superior interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, Big L is Mr. Positive, so if he's got something bad to say about it, that's a wow.
Exactly. And of course, all week long, we've got Liquid Lunch every weekday at noon Central. Different topic each day, but it's always going to be something pop culture related. And come join us. And that's about it. You guys, we'll get into the rest of the week another time. Any last thoughts? Any last words, Boomer? You okay? Are you dealing with this gaming crisis, Mr. Gamer, Mr. Console Man?
Here's the thing. Here's the weird thing about this gaming crisis. I'm getting all angry, and then part of me says, but you didn't even buy a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series console or a Switch 2. You're not even on the current systems, so
Right.
maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you don't have a dog in this fight at this point. Maybe
This is the point where you just go, you know what? It was kind of like me with the Joust game. It's like at a certain point you just go, I'm not gonna ever do this, so goodbye. You know.
I mean, I was considering getting one of them at some point, but because I don't know. I'm just gonna. We'll just wait and see. Maybe one of them will get their act together, and
Maybe you're
also
smart enough to not consider it anymore. Just say it.
You never know.
Anyway, Ned, any last thoughts, any last words before we wrap this thing up?
I think you guys are all Osmo. Thank you for the gifties and for my farty fox.
Absolutely. Let's see. I want to thank Ruby Hoove for gifted memberships on both of our channels. Tim Hayes for being a member for 21 months. And, of course, the Farty Fox on Netter's channel for Geek Flag with Nate Knows. So thank you guys so much for supporting us. You guys really are the best. Nobody else I'd rather get together with on a Friday night and have a drink to usher in the weekend. So take care of yourselves. Stay hydrated, especially with the heat the way it's going. Drink responsibly, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Good night, ladies. Good night, sir. Hit it, sweetheart.
The neon lights are fading, closing time is near. Whispers in the corners, secrets shared sincere. The bartender's polishing the final glass. Time slips away like moving through the grass. Last call for alcohol, make your dreams come true. One more round, friends, from me and you. Let's toast to the night, to the stories we've spun. Here's to the laughter and to what's begun. The shadows are dancing as we linger still. Every clink of a glass, a memory to distill. Beneath this smoky haze, our feelings they unfurl. A tapestry of whispers in this corner of the world. The jukebox serenades us with a final tune, crooning to the lonely and the lovers under the moon. With every soft note, the end draws ever near. But in this fleeting moment, there's nothing to fear. Last call for alcohol, make your dreams come true.